Have you ever noticed that horror movies often show the main character wearing a yellow raincoat? Like the kid in Stephen King's It, Jonas in Dark, or even Six in Little Nightmares? I did notice, thanks for asking, and I started to wonder, why is it always yellow? I get that the color is a cool contrast to the world that the horror movie is picturing, but why yellow? Why not neon green or orange? Or any other bright color? Why is it that all raincoats in horror movies need to be yellow? Or even more broadly speaking, because this also happens outside of horror movies. Why do all raincoats pop culturally always need to be yellow? I did some research about the invention of raincoats, and apparently the color choice was by accident. And also British tea plays a role, but hear me out. So the invention of raincoats was executed all over the world in very different ways. But the one that is relevant to our horror movies started out sometimes in the 1600s in Scotland. But the story of solving how to stay dry in the rain started out with a different problem: the efficiency of sails. So sailors noticed that sails perform better when they are wet. The sails simply catch the wind better, which makes the ships then go faster. But wet and soaked sails, which at this point in time were made out of linen, also added unwanted weight to the ship. So in an attempt to waterproof the sails, the sailors started to smear the sailcloth with different kinds of fats, like fish oil and grease. Out of all of these experimentations, linseed oil came out as the clear winner and the favorite of the people, mostly because it didn't smell as bad as fish oil. So linseed oil in the end not only solved the waterproofing problem, it also provided the same performance boost as did water-soaked sails. One problem is not solved though, the one that is revolving around tea. As the British Empire grew, also their trade and their seafaring became more important. And in order to fulfill the massive trade deliveries, also the ships had to evolve from big bulky ships to fast and nimble clippers, ones that used ginormous sails. And these ships that were nicknamed tea clippers encountered one big problem. You see, tea clippers were fast merchant sailing vessels. They were designed to transport tea from China to Europe as fast as possible so that the tea stays fresh. So these tea clippers were built especially for fast travel. And the sailors noticed that with the increasing size of the sails of the tea clippers, the linen and linseed oil sails grew way too heavy and they were slowing down the ships. Luckily, the British trade opened up the possibility to use canvas, which is a lighter but also more sturdy alternative to linen. Canvas also outperformed linen simply because it took on the oil way better. So this canvas and linseed oil combination became the go-to for sailcloth, and it was immediately adopted by tea clippers but also the Royal British Navy. From this point, some genius sailors started to collect offcuts of the sailcloth and turn it into very simple smocks. By the way, if you like those kinds of stories, please subscribe. It helps out a lot, and especially for small YouTubers like myself, it has a massive impact. If not, that's fine. Let's get back to the story. This clothing, made from cotton canvas and drenched in linseed oil, was then called oilskins. And these were the forerunners for the modern fisherman's slicker. Apart from this cool sounding story, different versions of the oilskins have been used since the 16th century. I mean, the need for waterproofing clothing in bad weather is not a new concept. People experimented for the longest time with coating their cloth with different kinds of oils, grease, tars and whatnot, just to achieve somewhat waterproof clothes. What's interesting is that in the end, all of these different kinds of people agreed that linseed oil is the best waterproofing coating and canvas is the best base material. Like already mentioned, canvas has amazing mechanical properties and it also absorbs linseed oil amazingly. And the reason for the choice of linseed oil is a crazy property of the oil itself. You see, linseed oil is a drying oil. These are oils that harden to a tough, solid film after a certain period of exposure to air. And through a process including oxygen, the components of the oil cross-link and turn into a polymer. It basically becomes a type of plastic. Not full on Gore-Tex yet, but we are basically halfway there. Now this linseed oil is also the solution to the initial question of why all rain jackets need to be yellow. When linseed oil ages, it turns into a yellowish color. So basically, back in the day, the main way of waterproofing clothes also automatically turned them yellow. And this accidental coloring became characteristic, not only for oilskins but for rain jackets in general. And it also created the connotation of yellow stuff being waterproof. Luckily, the accidental yellow color has also another advantage. The yellow oilskins provide high visibility in dark and foggy conditions, especially when a sailor or fisherman goes overboard. Also, nothing else in the sea is yellow. Wearing an oilskin or a slicker makes you stand out really good. But next to the advantages of linseed oil, it also comes with some downsides. First off, it cracked in cold weather, which also meant it lost its waterproofing capabilities. And even when not cracked, oilskins are very stiff and also very heavy. And while linseed oil was a major improvement to fish oil and grease, it still smelled pretty badly. Luckily, the oilskins received an update in 1823. A chemist called Macintosh, not like in MacBook Macintosh, more like Macintosh, discovered that rubber could be made soluble and then be used to make a laminate fabric, basically a sandwich of different fabrics. This laid the groundwork for modern waterproof clothing, and raincoats could from this point on be made from fabrics that also included rubber. But no, these were intentionally made yellow, even when the new jackets never incorporated linseed oil. The color yellow simply became synonymous with the idea of a waterproof jacket. And raincoats, especially the ones in the style of a fisherman's slicker, kept this color and became an iconic symbol. To such a degree that we pop culturally think that raincoats always need to be yellow. Okay, now the history of the raincoat, including the whole shtick about linseed oil, explains how the rain jacket got its characteristic yellow color. And since yellow is amazing for sticking out against a dark and grim background, like the Scottish Sea during a rainstorm, the makers of horror movies made use of this effect to create a contrast between the main characters and the scary world. But what I think is interesting is that the horror movies didn't make the rain jacket be yellow. The rain jacket already always had the signal effect by being yellow, which actually has some historic reasoning to it. The horror movies didn't change it, they just made use of it. I hope you enjoyed watching the video as much as I did doing the research, and if you like those kinds of stories about fashion and history, here's another video for you to check out. Take care.